The Rolling Stones have long been considered one of the greatest rock bands of all time, but most don't know about the four women who worked behind the scenes to help shape the band's image. You can read all about their fascinating lives and the roles they played in Elizabeth Winder's new book.
It's called Parachute Women. Marianne Faithfull, Marsha Hunt, Bianca Jagger, Anita Pallenberg, and the women behind the Rolling Stones. Elizabeth joins us now. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. So you always hear about the women behind the men. We've heard that a million times. What makes these women different? They're not groupies. They're something different than that.
Absolutely right. They are not groupies. It's one of the reasons why I wrote this book. What's so fascinating about these four women is really their confidence and their self-possession. Before the Rolling Stones met these women, they were great musicians, but they didn't have that sort of pirate swagger that really defines rock and roll culture as we know it. It was these women that gave them that confidence, gave them their style, introduced them to artists and writers, and really even introduced them to that sort of devilish rock star, that personality that we know.
Were these women, the four that you write about, a team of sorts? Did they work together as allies?
Yes and no. With Anita Pallenberg and Marianne Faithfull, a wonderful, really lifelong friendship developed between them. They've been thrown together for a while, since 1965 or 1966, and they had so much in common. They both loved literature, loved the arts, and they stayed friends through thick and thin. There was a lot of thin. And their friendship was one of the most amazing things to write about with this book. With Anita Pallenberg and Bianca Jagger, there definitely was a rivalry. They came from very different worlds and had very different values. So, there was sort of like both going on. They weren't a team in terms of the four of them, though.
Were all of them in relationships with Mick Jagger at some point?
Yes.
Okay, so that was the common thread. Did the other Rolling Stones, resent that these women were having influence, or no?
Well, the answer is really complicated, but one of the surprising things about that I learned in the process of writing this book was that the Stones did not really have resentment about the influence that these women were wielding. I think that they were very grateful for it. And I think that they were smart enough to realize the power that these women had, and sort of how helpful that they could be, or how helpful that their influence could be. Certainly Mick realized that. I think that Keith just sort of reveled in it. And we think of, rock culture is such a masculine sort of world, and in a lot of ways it's kind of the last bastion of acceptable sexism. So I think that we think of, like, people talk about Yoko Ono breaking up the Beatles, which of course is not true. But in this case, it was really quite the opposite. The Stones kind of pursued these women and wanted their influence.
I'm sure you've seen the movie Almost Famous, and I'm wondering, for people watching this, I went immediately to the Kate Hudson character, about how she, supported the band emotionally in lots of different ways, and in relationship as well. Is that kind of a comparison? Is that ballpark to these women?
I love that movie, first of all, and there's the comparisons are certainly, I can see how that would happen. I think that these women were a little different. I think that Bianca Jagger did really emotionally support Mick in the beginning of their relationship, and Marsha Hunt did as well, in terms of her friendship with him. But regarding Anita Pallenberg, I think that these women did not prioritize the band in any way. They were very independent and really prioritized themselves.
Gotcha. And so, and these women were, like Marianne Faithfull and Marsha Hunt, were musicians in their own right. Did any of them have any influence on the music?
Absolutely. So when Mick and Marianne Faithfull were together, particularly in the beginning years of their relationship, 1967, 1968, Marianne Faithfull was and still is a very literary person. She's a wonderful writer. She sort of lives and breathes poetry. So Mick would come to Marianne for help with writing the lyrics of many of their songs. Of course, she's not credited.
Yeah.
And Marianne Faithfull actually wrote the song Sister Morphine. And it was Decca released the song, but then quickly pulled it because there was such a backlash culturally about a woman singing and writing a song about drugs, about heroin. A few years later, the Stones recorded Sister Morphine and released it on Sticky Fingers without crediting Marianne Faithfull.
Is there any, I mean, has this ever been a lawsuit about some of those things? I mean, over the years, or have they stayed friendly?
They have stayed friendly for the most part.
Yeah, interesting. Well, for more, you can follow Elizabeth on social media. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.